Starfield, arguably the worst thing to happen in a generation.
Starfield's latest update is in Steam beta, and Bethesda Game Studios has given us the patch notes. Now, some people have been wondering why this update seems to be so much smaller compared to previous updates, so in today's video,
I wonder what these people honestly think when they say, oh, it's smaller than the previous update. Are you kidding me? Bethesda's updates in general, and especially for Starfield, are just minor. For most AAA studios, something that Bethesda calls a huge, ginormous, game-changing patch, most AAA studios would consider that like a minor patch that should not even require patch notes. But Bethesda makes this whole deal of the redemption story. Honestly, Bethesda's giant patches, are lower, slower, and worse quality than what an indie development studio does to patch up their game and make it playable. It is insane. It is absolutely insane. And you know what? I think I have noticed a thing that every bad studio does and every good studio doesn't do, okay? In Diablo 4, when it first came out, no one liked dungeons. Dungeons were absolutely horrible and terrible. They still arguably are, by the way. And you know what happened? People found like a dungeon or two that was actually good. It had good mob density, it had a decent layout, and everyone was going there and doing things. You know what Blizzard did? They nerfed the dungeon, and they nerfed the second two dungeons after that also that people went in and fought because they were fun. They nerfed it. And it took them less than 2 days after people start talking about this place being fun and exciting that they nerfed it. And then it took them multiple months to make dungeons even barely playable and fun to some people. And this is the same thing that Bethesda has essentially done, okay? Fixing game-breaking bugs takes literal months at this point, okay? People's saves are glitching out. 2-month fix. Add an FOV slider. DLC expansion, premium package, deluxe edition, microtransaction, okay? Eat button? Pfft, that's 3 expansions down the line, my boy, okay? But the moment people talk about a glitch where you can actually loot the chest that exists under the vendors as in all Bethesda games, that they fixed in less than 10 hours, okay? A thing that almost probably less than a handful of people actually used and did in the game, they patched that in less than 10 hours. Bad companies constantly do this. The moment people talk about something fun, they for some reason just destroy the fun. And they unironically think they're doing a good thing. But when it comes to actually fixing issues and making the game good, no, that takes literal months if they ever even pull it off in the first place. It is crazy.
we'll be answering that and also telling you everything else you need to know about the update itself. So if you enjoy this video, if you find it helpful, please like, subscribe if you're new, with notifications if that is possible. But let's get into this update. So as always, Bethesda has uploaded 2 articles for the update. The first is about the top line features, and the second includes all the patch notes. So that first one is entitled AMD's FSR 3 comes to Starfield, and it starts off by saying, AMD FSR 3 comes to Starfield in our latest Steam beta. Those of you playing on Steam can opt into the beta to see the improvements brought to the game before this.
So the FSR 3 wasn't even implemented for the AMD? What?
Update becomes available to all our PC Starfield players. This new feature allows for a combination of upscaling.
Oh, they did the NVIDIA stuff previously, right?
As well as advanced frame generation. That is the big one, boosting your frame rate for better performance. While AMD's FSR 3 works for a wide range of video cards, and that includes NVIDIA cards, mind you, you will want to verify that your system supports it so that you get the best experience. It is also recommended to use FSR 3 with VSync on and with a VRR monitor for the best experience. For those participating...
Do you want to bet this is going to break the game and crash PCs when it comes out? Because that's my bet, honestly, here. There was also a video we watched previously about the NVIDIA upgrade that boosts FPS and whatnot. And it was glorious, because you know what Bethesda did? They also added, hey, we made the NVIDIA thing work, which they didn't, by the way. As much as I can understand, NVIDIA literally came in and helped them make it work on Starfield, which is stupid and crazy, by the way. But Bethesda also try to use the situation and, well, get in the spotlight and say, hey, yeah, Nvidia upgraded Starfield's performance, but we also did our job, okay? We also made Starfield better. And then someone did a comparison, okay? The Nvidia thing boosted Starfield from, 50, 40, 30 FPS to 90 FPS, right? And then they compared to what Starfield Bethesda themselves upgraded, what they did. You know what the end result was from Bethesda's own upgrades and optimization for the game for performance? It was 3 FPS. From 30 to 33 FPS on average. Oh yeah. A 3 FPS Bethesda original performance increase patch. Only, by the way, for the small price of 50% more resource drain on certain parts of your PC. Dude, you can't make this up.
You can enable FSR 3 by heading to the display settings and accessing the upscaling options. From there, you'll be able to cycle through the option best suited for your experience. Now, I'm really glad, honestly, that we finally got an FSR 3 in the game. Personally, it doesn't bother me because I have an Nvidia card, so I can use DLSS. However, I know how many AMD users are out there that can't use DLSS that have really wanted FSR 3 in the game. You've kind of been stuck with FSR 2 for a good few months there. And even though it's not necessarily bad, of course you wanted the latest version. You wanted to have all the improvements and the features that come along with FSR 3. So for that reason alone, I'm very glad that it's in the game. What I will say though is that I'm genuinely surprised that it's taken this long, right? Because Starfield is meant to be an AMD sponsored title. So I thought AMD would want FSR 3 in the game as soon as possible, either at launch.
I think after Starfield launched, AMD wanted to forget it actually even has anything going on with Bethesda. The same way Microsoft wants to forget that they actually bought Bethesda and Blizzard.
Ideally, or as soon as possible after that, because they want to showcase FSR 3 to as many different people as possible, right? And when are the most people playing Starfield? It's at or around launch. It's not now. There's nowhere near the amount of players playing Starfield right now on PC versus launch time. So not many people are experienced.
Well, what's the player base down to? Like 1% of the start one? 5 times less currently than older titles like Skyrim. Yeah, it's bad.
I think FSR 3 and
It's
enjoying
real
all
bad.
the features and the capabilities that it has. So that surprises me a little bit, but I don't know why it took so long. I'm just glad that it's finally in the game now. What I will say...
Well, honestly, why did it actually take so fast? Again, a FOV slider that everyone knew that Bethesda is not going to include in the game, even though that's the first thing people ask for, took Bethesda 2 months to implement. The eat button, the second thing that everyone except Bethesda knew that everyone's going to ask for, took 4-ish months to implement? I'm surprised something as complicated as in whatever we're talking about actually got even implemented in the first place.
Though, is that the improvement really comes into it when you use frame generation. I've actually done a bit of comparison between FSR 2 and FSR 3 without frame generation, just to see if the upscaler itself had a boost to FPS, and it's very minor without frame generation. In like the most heavy resource intensive areas in the game, I always use Gagarin when it comes to that. The boost to FPS was like 1 to 2 frames per second when it comes to FSR 3 versus FSR 2. DLSS is still better, mind you, without frame generation, but it's not that much more, again, unless you're using frame generation. So please turn that on if you really want to enjoy high frame rates for Starfield, if you have an AMD card. Moving on, let's go on to the patch notes. So the patch notes are entitled Starfield Update 1.9.67 Notes, February 7, 2024 Beta. I still don't understand how Bethesda numbers their updates, like 1.9.67 and 1.9.51. I don't get it. Just number them normally. Anyways, we've added a new update to Steam Beta that includes AMD's FSR 3 options and a few other fixes. We encourage all of our Steam PC players to try it out and let us know your thoughts before this update goes live for all our players soon. Other fixes included in this update will be related to performance and stability, including adjustments done to address the Form ID issue we've seen several commenting on. I just want to pause here and say, Bethesda, it's a little more than several. There's been a lot of people commenting on the Form ID issue wanting it fixed. There's a lot of people that just can't play the game because they have the issue and they have to start a new save file and they don't want to do that. Or there's a lot of people feeling forced to go into New Game Plus so they don't encounter the Form ID issue and kind of ruin their save files. It's been a lot of people, and I do...
Okay, if you don't know what the Form ID issue is, well, you're never gonna encounter it because I assume you have enough brain cells to not play Starfield for longer than 2 hours or 4 hours. I personally played for 6. I really pushed myself, I know. Hey, Starfield was visibly bad from the trailers and was visibly painfully stupid in the literal first 20 minutes of the game. Like, worst Bethesda game experience at the start by far, okay? You start in a mining tunnel where you're bored out of your mind because nothing's happening and you need to read... No, not read, but listen to extremely slowly paced dialogue that gives you no information on anything. It doesn't explain to you the world, how the worlds work, how the universe functions. It's just poorly written dialogue. And then you wake up after having a rave in your mind or something, right? And then you encounter Constellation. Arguably the worst faction ever that makes literally no sense. That you don't even want to be a part of, okay? I'm assuming most people nowadays quit there because it's just that bad. But the issue he is talking about here is... everything that you encounter generates an ID that your computer needs to save, and if you play for like 20 hours on a single save, these IDs don't erase themselves, which they do in other Bethesda games, by the way, because keep in mind, Bethesda gets worse over time, obviously. Well, if you play in a single save for like 20 or 40 hours, it's gonna brick and be unplayable because of the lag, because your computer is just taking into account too many things. Because it has saved too many objects.
I believe this one needed to be fixed much sooner because of how prevalent it is. However, it's good that we're seeing some sort of improvement. But I'm going to talk about this in a second. Just notice that they don't use the word fix for Form ID. They use the word adjustment and they use the word improvement before, but not the word fix. I suspect...
because they... This is also a running joke in Starfield. Whenever Bethesda fixes something, they create 2 new bugs. And then after a week, it turns out they didn't even fix the original bug. Unironically legitimate. I'm not making this up. This is why I enjoy covering Starfield so much. Because this is a legit thing that happens. Bethesda fixes something. A week later, people are reporting, wait a minute, Chief, you didn't fix anything. And now there's this issue alongside it now. So you didn't fix anything, but you bricked everything even harder. And then Bethesda has fixed the companion asteroid that always follows your ship no matter what happens 3 times at this point. Okay? And I'm not even sure it's fixed the 3rd time. Well, or is it the 4th time? But in any case, it's crazy.
I hope I'm wrong on this, but I suspect that at some stage for very, heavy players that keep playing the game, I suspect Form ID might kind of crop its head again unless Bethesda continues to improve the situation. But we'll talk about that later. So, fixes and improvements when it comes to graphics. Again, they added support for AMD Fidelity, FXTM Super Resolution 3 or FSR 3, and they also added support for Intel Xe Super Sampling or XeSS. So that's really good for those of you on Intel.
Okay,
And they fixed an issue causing the resolution scale to reset to 1 when switching from full screen to windowed mode when using DLSS. Now,
more bugs that I did not even know exist that should probably not even exist in the first place, but that's fine.
I'm still encountering some resetting bugs when it comes to settings. For instance, in the latest Steam beta, whenever I swap from FSR 3 to DLSS...
You see what I mean? Bethesda claims to fix something. Is it really actually fixed? I don't know. Probably not.
DLSS. For some reason, it always resets my rendering resolution scale to 67, even though I want it at 100, and it keeps changing.
By the way, Bethesda also has done a couple of bug fixes at this point, but they have done 0 gameplay updates. which is crazy.
Changing it to 67, I have to change it again, right? Also, sometimes it resets the dynamic resolution setting for me. I always want that thing off. I don't want dynamic resolution, but sometimes when I swap from FSR to DLSS, it turns it back on again, and I need to turn it off again. So those two things, I really hope they fix. It's kind of an annoyance. Not a major issue, but kind of a little bit annoying. But anyways, let's go to the talking points. First of all, why is this update seemingly so small? Bethesda previously established that they want to release decently sized updates about every 6 weeks for Starfield. So obviously, we're a little bit earlier than that. If you look at when updates have been released previously, the previous update went into Steam beta on the 18th of January, and the full release was on the 30th of January. So if we go 6 weeks after that, it would mean a Steam beta of the 29th of January and a full release of 12th of March. Obviously, it is earlier than expected. So why is that? And why is this update seemingly much smaller than the previous update? Because the previous update had about 100 plus fixes. I think it was 120 by...
I love how he says seemingly smaller. As to imply it's not actually smaller. Also, the 106 thing update literally changed nothing for no one on average. It fixed things, if it even fixed things, that people didn't even know were issues. Like, literally, they fixed things that no one even ever complained about or knew was an issue.
By my count.
Oh, and at some points they made things worse, obviously.
So why is it so much smaller? Even though it still has big features and improvements, and not all fixes are equal, it is still clearly smaller than other updates. The reason being, I believe, and I think a lot of other people believe this as well, is that this is very likely an out-of-cycle patch. Bethesda has said they're not just going to stick to these big updates every 6 weeks. If something needs their attention and needs to be fixed, they will release an update even though it's technically in between that 6 weeks cadence. So that is probably what has happened here. And some people also suspect that they couldn't fit in the fixes and features in this Steam beta in the previous update because maybe they just needed a little bit longer to work on it, especially with the Form ID issue. I know how complicated, or I guess I suspect how complicated it must be. They probably just needed a little bit more.
I absolutely don't care how complicated anything is for my games. If my game developer is gonna say, hey, this is complicated for us, I'm gonna say, well, shit, you better start figuring it out then, because I don't care. I'm not gonna give you 10 or even a second chance just because you say, oh, the game engine has limitations. No, the game engine has zero limitations in my opinion. Work on it. Figure it out. I literally don't care.
More time. So it had to wait a few more weeks, but do you really want to wait until potentially the end of the month or next month for the next update? No, Form ID needed to be fixed right now. If anything, it needed to be fixed months ago. So they were probably like, we should just release this now. Let's just do a separate update, try and address Form IDs as soon as possible. And then come later in February or in March, we'll have the bigger update with a bunch of other features. So that's what we suspect. That's what I suspect. So don't be worried that this update is a little bit smaller. Honestly, maybe they should have called it a hotfix and just included the Form ID thing, and then have XESS and FSR 3 in the next big update. Make it seem like a bigger deal than normal, because FSR 3 didn't need to happen right now. It wasn't like game breaking or anything. It could have waited for the next update to make it seem a little bit more meaty.
I mean, that's what Bethesda did. That's what they ironically did. They took the game concept of Starfield, everything that was good, and said, you know what, we're gonna release it maybe 50 years down the road. There we go. And that's how we ended up in this situation. Yeah. Dude, what are these opinions? Oh, people are complaining that the game's not good? Oh, you have this thing that's gonna fix stuff? Oh, don't release it just yet. Release it so it looks bigger. Until the point, if you try to pull this stupid crap off, literally any game developer out there, okay? You're just asking to go bankrupt, okay? I'm not gonna wait a month playing a completely broken game because you just want your patch note to look bigger. Oh, no one cares about it.
And maybe that would have meant...
We just want a good game.
You could have had the Form ID issue fixed earlier if it was released as a hotfix. My speculation, I know that, and I could be wrong, but that's why we have this update so early, that's why it's smaller, so don't stress about it. Now let's talk about FSR 3 versus FSR 2 versus DLSS. what has been my experience? Now, I have an NVIDIA RTX 4090, so it's a very, very high-end card. It's not the best test case for a lot of you users out there, especially if you're using an AMD card. FSR obviously is going to be better on an AMD card versus an NVIDIA card, right? But that being said, I'll still talk about my experience. When it comes to testing performance and settings, I always go to Gagarin. Gagarin, for some reason, always tanks my frame rate, more so than Killer City and everywhere else in the...
Bro, again, just to look at this absolutely luscious shithole of a city. Dude, look at this. Tarp. Everything's a tarp. Who designed this? Who decided that every single square that is randomly generated and cobbled together 100% needs some kind of plastic tarp on it for some reason? Or some kind of cable for no reason? Who decided? Who decided that this is okay? Who decided that Starfield's universe needs to be filled with 99.9% boxes that can't be opened and interacted with? What's the deal with crates constantly being everywhere? I don't get it. Did people just, yesterday move into this universe? Why is everything in a crate everywhere? Why do mining facilities not have crates and storage containers? How does this make sense? Actually, yeah, I just thought about that. Mining facilities in Starfield don't have anywhere to put in the stuff that you mine. But every other location in Starfield has 50 crates for some reason. Oh, bruh.
Let's go to Gagarin. Gagarin, for some reason, always tanks my frame rate. Really, how good these improvements are, I'll go here and try it out. So when I was trying out FSR2, again, it's like, why is everything a wire? Why are there pipes just randomly here? How does this make sense? Look at this. Look at this. Why is this here? Why is this here? Why is this here? What does it do? How does this make sense? Does it hold up the platform? What does it do? I don't know. It looks like it's just random. It's just purely random. Not with frame generation, because frame generation is...
Wait, also, is that pipe actually bent? Is this pipe bent? You understand if that happens in real life, it explodes probably, depending on what's pumped through there, because that completely destroys the stability of the whole thing, right? You understand this is a huge safety hazard, and this place could probably explode and go up in hell any moment now. Bro, what do you mean? Look at this. And this is what I mean. These cities are just so absolutely ass. Everything about Starfield is just a fever dream of someone with the IQ of a whole whopping total of maybe 50 at best.
Because frame generation is clearly improving your performance. I wanted to see how good the actual upscaler was and see if there were any improvements to FPS just with the upscaler. So with FSR2 in 4K Ultra, everything maxed out, dynamic resolution off, frame gen off, as I mentioned, I was getting around 63 to 68 frames per second, right? But with FSR3, it was about 64 to 69 frames per second. So very, very slight improvement.
What is this? What is this? What the hell is this? Look at this.
Around 63 to 68.
Well, what is this? This is a lamppost. This is a lamppost. And for some reason, there's a wire just hanging there, and there's 2 more lamps on it. Why? Can't you just put a stronger bulb in that one? We can already do that in our world. And this is the future.
Frames per second, right? But with FSR3...
Why is there a random stool there? Why? Someone clearly took that and placed it there.
It was about 64 to 69 frames per second. So very, very slight improvement. If for whatever reason you can't use frame generation...
More boxes. At least I don't see any tarps or random wires, technically.
You're not going to see that much of an improvement for frames per second if you are using FSR3 over FSR2. You need to turn on frame generation, trust me. However, DLSS is obviously still better. If you have an NVIDIA card, you are going to be getting better FPS over FSR2 or even FSR3, of course. So for DLSS,
Random clutter on the ground again, same.
using those same settings, I was getting from 68 to 70.
Again? Is this like an abandoned place or something? Who knows?
3 frames per second. So FSR2 and FSR3 are pretty close.
You understand rocks like this would never be on a platform like this if it was not abandoned? That people would just literally naturally just go around and kick them down. That's how it works. But no, this is Bethesda. And again, look at this wall. Look at this wall. Exhaust duct. Exhaust duct. Exhaust duct again. More. Why do you have a vent on the vent? This is a part of the cooling system for the house. Why is there a vent on it? Does this plant even have that? Yeah, it has that. That's what we saw. NPCs. What is even this? I don't know. What? Look at this. Here's something for airflow, and there's one more again. Oh.
To 73 frames per second. So FSR2 and FSR3 are pretty close, but DLSS is a little bit better.
Oh, look at that again. Random wires and random pipes just protruding from every single nook and cranny possible. Look at this. Look at this. How do you? Who designed this?
Also as well, DLSS still looks better. Quality-wise, DLSS is still better than FSR, and I couldn't notice that much of a difference between FSR2 and FSR3 when it comes to quality.
Okay, I think we're done, because it's just comments left here, it seems like. Well, maybe not, it's not all comments. Let's look at the big post and see what we got here.
Reason why I say this, I want to highlight this comment on a previous video of mine. This is from...
Nope, it's just comments. Okay, I am done. God, I hate this game. Anyway, that was the Lone Vault Wanderer. Pretty good, pretty funny. Again, the more Starfield I get in my life, the happier I am because it's just hilarious. Anyway, this was Cuzzer Said, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.